Hello, City of Concord and surrounding area. Welcome to Believe It. I'm your host, Dawn Drew, and I am here today with popular demand Lou Lessard, who is come back to delight us with part 2. You may have remembered that a couple of months ago, Lou was on talking about forgiveness. And I had some people that had requested to know the process. Well, okay, so you can think about forgiving someone, or you can go into the process of forgiving, but how do you actually really do it? You know, talk is talk and walking is walking. So Lou is back here to help us to understand a little bit more about that. Thank you for coming on the show, Lou.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
So last time that you were here, I'm not sure if it was May or June. And by the way, if anyone would like to see that particular show, you can go to yourconcordtv.org/on-demand-player. And TV screen will come up, and on the right-hand menu, click on Believe It, and all these episodes will come up. And Lou will be one of the more recent ones from the first episode. And during that episode, we talked about how this came into it came so strongly into your awareness, because you teach forgiveness. You help people understand,
I share my journey.
Share your journey, yeah. So how did this come, just to kind of
A quick
catch
recap.
people up?
Yeah, it was a way as I got older in my adulthood, and I started to see patterns occurring in my relationships, in my life. And at some point I started to notice that, we've all heard the term, we're the common denominator.
Right.
So I really took that to heart, and I found that forgiveness, instead of blaming my mother and blaming my father, blaming everybody around me, was the best way that I found, one, to make a permanent change, but also to take responsibility and take my power back in my own life. I found it to be a very empowering thing.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit before the show. People coming to a point of owning it, owning their energy, owning where they go from here, no matter what stuff is influenced by them. And we talked a little bit about that too, in the ancestry influence, which you brought some books with you.
Yeah.
Would you kind of talk about these books a little bit, because they're fabulous books. I know the first one I have, but this first one that you picked out is one I'm unfamiliar with. But after speaking with you, I'm going to pick this book up.
So this first book is from Desmond Tutu, who is one of the great leaders from South Africa during the apartheid changes that went on in that country when Nelson Mandela was finally released from prison and became president of the country. And he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and for good reason, because he and all those great leaders were really firm believers in that, you can't fight hatred with hatred. You can't, fight violence with violence. You have to reconcile, and take a new path. And he outlines, the reason I brought the book was, it's a wonderful resource. His depth of knowledge on the subject of forgiveness is breathtaking. But he has this path, he calls it the fourfold path, where he talks about telling the story of what happened, and then naming, once you're comfortable telling the story, acknowledging or naming where in the story you were hurt, where you were wounded, where the trauma, that you're stuck with happened. And what really resonated the most with me was the third step, which was choosing to release that hurt, or choosing to forgive. And from last show, you'll know that for me, forgiveness and release I like to interchange the words, because sometimes forgiveness can be kind of a tough pill to swallow, the word. But I like the way he described choosing to release or choosing to forgive somebody. Like, nobody's telling you to. When you get to a certain point in your life where you're sick of carrying around that hatred or that anger or that hurt, and you're sick of saying, this happened to me, and just the way of wording that, you're a victim. You're making yourself the victim over and over and over again. And then when you say, I want to choose to forgive this person, or I want to choose to release or let this go. All of a sudden, you're no longer the victim. You're back in control of your own life. You have your power back.
That choice is releasing the energy.
Exactly.
And you're not necessarily, not that you shouldn't, but you're not necessarily confronting that physical person or the situation. This is within yourself in wherever you are. You're making a different choice instead of carrying this ton of this ball and chain to open it up and just let it be nothing but air.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's an excellent point about the energy, because like we were talking before the show, everything has energy.
Everything is energy.
And it's not just like we talked about last time where, if you look at our hands under a microscope or anything, that it's mostly space and it's just energy moving around. Nothing is still. But our thoughts have an energy. Our words have an energy. Our actions have an energy. If I say I love you, that's an energy, whether I'm thinking it or saying it or displaying it, that has an energy that's going to hit you in a certain way, as opposed to something that's angry or hurtful.
Right.
So when we hear this, in this age, you hear a lot of spiritual talk, and everybody's talking about how we're co-creators. But if you really break it down into practical terms, we're co-creating with our thoughts and our words and our actions. It's not some big mystical thing. It's what we do, think, and say every day, every moment of every day.
That vibration of that particular pattern of words, destructive, hateful words are over here, and the loving, kind, considerate words are over here.
Right.
It puts you in a different space, which brings to mind when my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, was very, very young. She said to me, "Nana, Daddy told me sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Your daddy is really a smart man, but I want you to think about this. So what if I told you now, honey, just remember that this is just for you to understand. I don't mean this, but what if I was to tell you I don't like you anymore? How do you feel?"
That hurts.
And she went, "Oh." I said, "Yeah, so you see, words sometimes are even stronger than getting hit with something, because when you're hit with something, it's physical, it happens, bang, and that physicalness has come and gone. But with words, we hang on to them.
Yeah.
And when we hang on to them, which is what you were helping us to understand, how much different it is when you're willing to not hang on to them anymore. And that's simply just not hanging on to them anymore.
And it takes effort, and it's hard.
It takes effort, and it takes responsibility, personal responsibility.
And there's also that aspect of, like, this one of the second books I brought, which it's called "It Didn't Start With You" by Mark Wolin. And the thing I like most about this book is he makes a lot of references to current scientific studies that they're doing, where they actually show that trauma, not just physical trauma, but emotional and psychological trauma, actually changes our DNA. And when I do my talks, I have that weekly group that I do down in Newburyport. One of the ones I like to, when we have new people in the group, I reference is there was a study in Emory University School of Medicine in 2013 where they took mice and they exposed them to the smell of cherry blossom-like scent. But every time they gave them the smell, they shocked them.
Nice.
So there's smell shock. And they observed them, and what they noticed was they actually started, different parts of their brain started to get larger that were linked to their smelling. So that they could, the mice were actually changing genetically so that they could detect the smell sooner and try to avoid getting shocked.
No kidding.
Wow. And there was also other trauma that went along with that. And He says, the most intriguing aspect of the study is what occurred in the next 2 generations. Both the pups and the grandpups, the children and the grandchildren, when exposed to the blossom odor, the cherry blossom odor, became jumpy and avoided it despite never having
Really?
experienced
Oh, the
it.
hair on my arm is standing up straight.
And they also exhibited the same brain changes.
Wow.
So the changes that happened to Dad, because these were male mice that they were doing it,
okay,
it got passed down to his children and his grandchildren, even though they had never been shocked.
And so a lot of times when people have traumatic things that they can't figure out, it may not even be their stuff.
Exactly.
It could be something that is just a challenge in their lineage.
Right.
And so in the realm of responsibility, in the realm of forgiveness, how would you address that? Just, again, bring it into the process and just alter your thought pattern about it?
So there's a lot of different ways that you can help things. Like Louise Hay was a huge believer in affirmations. She cured herself of cancer with using specific affirmations with what was going on in her body. I'm a big believer in prayer. Prayer / affirmations. I almost use them as a mantra. There's a lot of fields of study. Like tapping. Was that? I forget what the acronym is for it. Where you tap different things and it helps you kind of program different. Reprogram. What's going on. Yeah. You're familiar with a lot of the spiritual, shaman type healing that, goes on. All these things are kind of meant to change our energy back. The reason I like prayer is, like we were talking about, it's simple. We can all do it. We don't have to go seek somebody else, although you can have somebody do prayer for you, and that, and that works. But our thoughts and our words, again, have an energy, and they can impact us just as they can cause damage. I believe, and I've seen in my own life, and I've seen with others, that they can also cause healing. So if we think of everything in terms of energy,
right,
nothing's impossible.
Right. That's right. That's what it's all about.
But we gotta put our energy in the right direction. Like, we gotta choose. We can choose to be angry. We can choose to hate somebody over and over and wake up every day. And, we can choose to, by doing so, we're choosing what's going to happen next. It's going to start causing problems eventually in our body,
Physiology. Cancer,
heart problems, you name it. I believe it's all linked.
It's all linked, yeah. I see it a lot with people that have some kind of a physical ailment, and my psyche will kick in, and I'll ask them a question about something in their past, and they're like, wow, I forgot all about that. Yeah, you're right, yeah. And it had that much of a strong impact. Here they are, 60, 70 years old, and they're still carrying it. Right. And that was like when you were, 7 or 8 years old.
Or, like we were just saying, it could have been something that happened to their grandmother.
Could have been something that happened to their
grandmother.
And
they don't even know why.
And they don't even know why they hate spiders, or they can't deal with snakes or worms or something of that nature.
Or when somebody behaves in a certain way and we react to it, and we don't necessarily understand why.
Yeah.
It could have been 100 years ago that was the real root of it.
I was telling you, I had that same thing happen to me 2 days ago when I had my dog's leash around my finger, and she took off after a squirrel. And the funny thing was, I was talking with someone today, and I said, did you hear my pirate coming out? A couple of days ago when I was here? And he said, no, why? And I told him what had happened, and he instantly said, she was trying to protect you. That's why she went after that squirrel. All of a sudden, that annoyance that my finger still hurts and I'm still upset with you because you took off without me and caused all this ruckus, went right out the window. I was like, wow,
what a beautiful way of putting it.
This animal was trying, in the thinking, it doesn't matter really what was happening or what was going on in her mind, but thinking about her trying to protect me, and that's why she took off after the squirrel. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, here's a cookie.
Isn't that cool though, how we can look at things so much differently?
Yeah.
Like things that happen, like it's not like things don't happen in my life now and people don't say things and
Right.
I'm not in situations where things happen.
Right.
But now instead of going, oh, that person's blah, blah, or, and again, making myself a victim, I go, well, that's interesting that happened today. Why is that? What attracted me to this situation?
Right.
Or
why is that in my life?
or like what's coming up for healing, and that kind of brings me to the
Yes.
Ho'oponopono, which I was
Ho'oponopono, I
really
love that
happy
book.
that you're
I love
familiar
it.
with the
I've
book.
peeled that thing apart. Yes.
And for those of you that are familiar with Ho'oponopono, it's a Hawaiian or a Polynesian process of forgiveness and release and reconciliation. And there's actually a lot of information online or in books out there. There's a number of books, and I was drawn right to this book.
I love that book too.
It's small,
I have my copy.
and it's the overview and the guidance it gives is it's very to the point and very beautiful, and like I was talking last week to somebody who was asking me about Ho'oponopono, and I said we just kind of finished a discussion about family lineage, and I said, back in the old days when you had a village kahuna, or the keeper of wisdom and knowledge, you would go to them with a problem, and the first thing they would do is they would call the whole family in, because they knew if Dawn has a problem, chances are her mom does, her children do, like everybody, and let's call in everybody, that's associated with this problem, because if we really want to fix it, we want to fix it for everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, that is really powerful. The story of Ho'oponopono too, that created this book, was the wonderful venture of this psychiatrist that healed the whole ward eventually.
Yeah, Hugh Len.
By
Hugh Len.
I'll let you elaborate on this. It was
yeah, he was a Western trained, was he psychiatrist, psychologist?
Yep. Psychiatrist.
And I believe he was asked by a friend if he would take this position to basically be in charge of this wing for psychologically ill prisoners. That they couldn't keep anybody in that position. They actually were struggling to keep anybody even working there.
Even working there, right.
And the patients were considered to be
out of control.
Right. They were not able to be rehabilitated. And he had been learning this practice of Ho'oponopono, and he said, I'll agree to take this position under two conditions. One, I don't ever have to see these prisoners personally myself, and two, I want access to their files. And
so he never actually saw a patient.
He never met with them. And in being a Western trained doctor, he understood the value of documenting everything so it could be peer reviewed. And so what he did was, it's considered a miracle because it's all proven and reviewed. So over the next, 2-3 years, he went through and he would go into his office, he would pick up the prisoner or the patient's file, and instead of saying, oh, he did this horrible thing, he did that horrible thing, he would read it and it was a horrible thing, and he would look inside himself and he would say, what inside of me, what darkness, what dark place inside of me necessitated you to do that so that I could become aware of it and heal it? And he went through this process of the Ho'oponopono, where, there's a lot to it, but there's that simple prayer. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. And thank you. I'm sorry that, that I'm carrying this burden from, either myself or my ancestors. Please forgive me. I love you. And it's I love you, but I'm also acknowledging I love myself and I love all my ancestors and everybody in my lineage. And also, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for presenting this opportunity for me to heal this once and for all. And within 2 or 3 years, I believe they had shut down. I think it was in 3 years or so. And it's in the book, but they had shut down the wing. Because all the prisoners were either moved to a different facility because
Right.
they no longer
No
needed
longer
to be
needed
there.
that high security.
Right.
They were integratable
Right.
into society. Yeah, it's
So,
amazing.
so it's,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's remarkable, the way he did it, it was made it acceptable in our Western world because, it's kind of like he did this and this happened,
Right.
and it
And
was,
he wasn't even in the physical presence
right.
of any of these patients, clients.
That's the way I understand it, yeah.
Yes, that's the way I understood it too. Which goes to show you, again, when you talk about, being more than space, than physiology,
Right.
than you go into, look at your hand under a microscope and you keep going and going and going, there's like a vast space
Right.
that is in between this solidification of what creates your hand. That is where everything is collected. And this is where they talk about the collective consciousness and the collective lineage. It's all
Right.
there and somehow influencing us depending on our receptivity and how it is we want to carry that.
Yeah, we're connected, energetically and genetically to our lineage, but then we humans are all connected as
We
well.
humans are all connected too, that's right.
And then we humans are connected to, the earth and,
Right.
everything around us.
Right.
So there's all these,
Yeah.
Connected, beautiful connections, and it all matters.
It all matters. It matters. The matter is that it matters.
Yeah.
So let me ask you before I let you go, because unfortunately we're almost running out of time.
It goes so fast.
No, it's amazing, isn't it? I'm so glad that you came on. So you've given us 2 different techniques for this. Is there something else that when you do your sessions with people, is there something else that you use, or what is the strongest thing that you use when you help people to feel like they can forgive something? Because you can't do it yourself. I mean, they have to do it. It's personal responsibility.
Right. That's the big thing I try to work when I'm working with people is I really want them to see that this is something we all can do for ourselves. And the more people that are out there doing it for themselves and sharing their experiences, imagine if the whole world woke up, every morning and said that simple Ho'oponopono prayer, just, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you, or any number of wonderful, beautiful healing, forgiving prayers, or some positive mantra or positive affirmation for the world. Imagine if all 7-8 billion of us did that every morning, and what the shift in the energy on the planet would be. It would be amazing.
It has been documented. I think that Greg Braden had something to do with this in collecting masses of people at certain times of the day to pray for situations such as the Middle East, etc. And during that time that they were praying, violence went down considerably.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard of things like that, and I've also heard when, like a natural disaster happens, that there's measurable differences in like the energy, of the planet, like just from something happening.
So I just want to touch on this because you mentioned this before we came on the show. Your travels with the Navy. You were in the Navy. Thank you for serving. And how did this, after your service with the Navy, did this come into your awareness? Did it kind of play with you before you went in?
I wouldn't say I was consciously, on a forgiveness path then.
Yeah.
It was more when I got into my late 20s, early 30s that I really started looking at myself and wanting to take responsibility and
wanting to clean out that wreckage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think we all get there at some point, or most of us do. And even nowadays, there's more and more people that are kind of like, quote unquote, waking up. And it's more of just being aware. And I've seen a lot of people that are, getting interested in that I would have never expected. You know, like, oh, they're the last person in the world that I would think that would, you know, and then they'll see, you know, a post that I put on Instagram or something, you know, and I had somebody at the gym a couple of weeks ago come up to me, and I was shocked, you know, because it's a big person that I wouldn't have ever thought that would be into something like that. And he was like, I really look forward to some of your posts because they're thought-provoking, you know, and they get me thinking about different things that, you know, that I'm finding myself interested in, you know, so.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful world.
Thank you so much for coming
you.
back for part 2. And I really appreciate all of the things, the information, the books that you brought, and your wonderful, wonderful wisdom, your great big heart.
Yeah, thank you.
Lou Lessard, Newberry Port. Is there a contact information for you, Lou?
You can go to my website. It's www.lessard.com.
Okay.
There should be links on there for Facebook, Instagram, where I'm pretty active these days too. So
wonderful. Okay.
And my email's on there as well.
Everybody tune in. Lou Lessard, thank you
you
so much. This is Believe It. I am your host, Dawn Drew. Thank you for watching.